So, all right. Nobody else is masked. For the sake of the recording, I will go ahead and take my mask off. I mask most of the time because we serve kids over there. I prefer to err on the side of caution. So, okay. This is Nathan Montoya, Chair of the Human Relations Commission, calling our meeting to order for July 22nd, 2021, calling it to order at 2:03 p.m. Okay, our first item on the agenda is the review and approval of the minutes. I sent the minutes out for our last meeting, which was a long time ago. That was in August of 2019. And so the people who were here for that meeting, that would be you.
Yes, I was.
And sure, right, Sue, yeah. Hopefully you've reviewed. I always prefer to work paperless. And so I hope if you didn't bring it with you that you can remember that you read it or whatever, or have it accessible. And so are there any amendments to that, any changes to the minutes?
As far as I can remember, I think we were fine.
Yep.
I just had one thing on, I think it was number 5. You had a list of the current members and when their present term is completed, and I wasn't listed on there. I was absent from that meeting, so that might have been why, but if we could add that, that would be great.
5.
It's on page 2 of 3.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, and you were a member at that time? Absolutely. Okay, so.
What is your term?
That's a good question.
That's the next thing on the agenda. Yeah, well,
Correct.
because there's some ambiguity with that, and so we need to. And I tried to talk with Tammy about it, and it was still a little. Well. So we may have to just decide. Okay, so I'm putting you in there as a. Okay. Anything else? All right.
Do you know what their password is? Oh, I have not just put it on that.
Okay. Any other changes? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 7th, 2019 as amended with the addition of Katie Hadley. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on. Introduction and welcome of new commissioners. And so since we've got, 3 relatively new, 2 absolutely new, 1 who is not exactly new but hasn't been at a meeting before because world travels as an academic, why don't we just go around briefly, introduce ourselves, name and just a sentence or something.
Hi, I'm Jess McAllister. I work at the library. I think I've been on the commission for 2 years, maybe 2.5. That's pretty much it.
Shirley Klepfer, coordinator of Casa Amiga, been on forever. Before 2000, but I don't know, probably 1999, something like that.
I'm Susan Jackson. I work for the Madison Police Department. I've been there for Madison. I've been about 15, 16 years. And this is my first meeting, and I'll do the first submit. I have no idea what I'm doing yet. So
That's okay.
I am eager to learn.
Yeah, well,
Great.
That's what we asked.
And I will say, actually, before Randy introduces himself, that Randy's here as an invited guest, not a member of the commission. Invited guest, actually, David Alcorn, former city councilman David Alcorn was the invited guest. Randy is here in his stead. David had a medical emergency and couldn't make the meeting. So, Randy.
So I'm Randy Lakeman. I am the Director of Development at Ivy Tech, and there I'm also the diversity lead for everything diversity on our campus. But in the community, I'm the president of the Madison Main Street program and also the Madison Area Art Alliance.
Sue Livers, and I'm just here forever.
Pardon me? We're just,
The Forever Sue.
Sure.
the
Forever
S.
Sue and Shirley.
The
I'm
S.
looking,
Sue
I'm
and
looking
Shirley.
2019.
That was mine too, 2019.
Yeah, and we've had a pandemic in the interim, and so
Yeah.
that's gonna require a reset on everything. So, okay, Forever Sue.
And I'm retired.
You age backward, so we may be here forever.
I'm retired from King's Daughter South.
I'm Bill Johnson, the pastor at First Christian Church. I've been on the commission a few years, maybe 3, maybe 4.
Maybe cool.
I don't know.
I don't know.
At least 3.
Yeah.
I'm Tony Schroeder, retired from Madison School Corporation as a elementary counselor and professionally a clinical social worker, still working part-time in that capacity.
My name is Katie Hadley. I teach sociology at Hanover College.
My name is Roland Newman, recently moved to Madison about 5 years ago, semi-retired technical program manager.
And I'm Nathan Montoya, and I'm chair. By the way, Sue is vice chair, and Bill is secretary treasurer. So I'm chair. I own and manage with my spouse Village Lights Bookstore. I'm technically retired. Former performer, a former dancer, former academic, former professor of modern dance, and now bookstore proprietor. I'm a East. I've been on this body since 2016, I believe. Served on the vine for a while, and then when Bob Canada left, whatever. I guess I was duped into doing this. So there we go. That's our round robin of introductions. Next item on the agenda is, oh, by the way, I served for 11 years on the faculty senate of Southern Methodist University, and so I like to run meetings with sort of a modified Roberts approach, not terribly rigid, but trying to keep things on a fairly even track. So, just FYI. So now, election of officers. Given the pandemic reset, we don't really know whose terms are ending when, and so I'm thinking that something we might consider. I would have to check with the mayor's office, talk with Tammy, and see if some terms could be, say, adjusted by a year. If there's any opposition to that idea, say so now. Because we had essentially a year with no action, no ability to act because of the pandemic and the shutdown, and then limited ability to meet. And part of that was, well, there were a lot of different reasons for that. Limitations on the part of technology that was available at different points during the pandemic. None of this was the fault of anybody or any administration. It was not the fault of City Hall. I want to hasten to mention there. A lot of it was personal choice. We were not comfortable, so on and so forth. But for many reasons, there's basically a gap year. So, the thought just occurred to me that we might consider asking that terms be extended by 1 year so that we can at least move forward relatively seamlessly. So, everybody cool with that?
I have no objection.
No
Sure.
objection.
1
Okay.
year for Shirley and Sue.
Yeah, and
Still
yeah.
be- Would be out.
1 year for them,
We'd be
and,
out twice.
and maybe 2 years for them.
I think that would be better, I think, yeah.
You think, Bill?
I'm just guessing.
Maybe we could squeeze in the third year out of them. I mean, it's forever Sue there. So, but at least till technically we're supposed to do our election of officers in January, at the beginning of the year. We missed that. So I would suggest that we do our election of officers, take care of the election of officers now for the balance of this year, and then hopefully be on track in January to proceed. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that coming at you blind, I will entertain any motion whatsoever with regard to the election of officers. If anybody wants to move to make specific, to nominate specific individuals, or move to keep things as they are, or whatever. So open to comments.
I think keeping things at least, if it's gonna be January, that's not that far away, and it's
Right.
likely we're not gonna meet a dozen or more, you know, at times. I think just keeping it until January makes sense, and then just start afresh.
Agreed.
Anyone else?
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
I will make the motion to retain the officers as is held right now.
Okay, we have a second. All right, motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, I take it. All right, so moving on, ongoing business. So reviewing the member terms, we've essentially addressed that. So adding to 4 years for Shirley, right?
Double it, huh? 2 times 2.
Okay, yeah, what I
That's
have.
my number, Shirley.
What I have, it was Katie term through 22, Season through 22, Bill through 21, Shirley through 22, actually.
Oh, I thought it was 20, or 19.
You thought it was 19? See, I'm gonna have to, whatever you thought, I thought it was 24. But, and I'm gonna have to just sit down with Tammy, spend some time, look at the paperwork.
As long
because
as
when
I'm
people-
okay, you can do it.
People come in also, like midterm, somebody leaves, somebody comes in, and that can throw things a little off with the records. Okay.
I do want to give others the opportunity.
Right.
Sure. And, okay, Jessica had 21, I'm through 21, Tony 21, Roland 23, and that was it for now. But I'll touch base with her, and I might just send out an email and say, this is what it looks like, and get comments on that. So, okay, that takes care of reviewing of member terms. Reviewing member info on the city website. This is kind of been a little frustrating for me. Hold it up here, and, oh good, I actually have the connection.
Nathan, while you're pulling that up, may I ask how to get on the network here?
There is a password. I'm not sure if I even know it because can anybody quickly access their password records?
I don't know what it is.
I can.
I tried to find it.
I could go ask.
That'd probably be quicker than me hunting through
Yeah.
my preferences.
Let me just
to
go ask.
find
Yeah,
it,
because I was trying to find it too. Probably something.
Is it under city of Madison?
Yeah, but I'm not on either, so. There's not a program that I
Madison
know
City
of.
Hall.
But you go there, but you gotta have a password.
Yeah. Okay, so we have everybody's email address on the website except for Roland and Seasons. Now, Susan, I have an email address for you that's police department, and that's the best one to use, yep. And Roland, I have yours, obviously. So you've been, Susan, you've been getting the things I've sent to you.
That's okay, I get called summer more than season.
Like
I respond to either.
I like all the
Whatever
seasons.
some days I get.
Is it fall and winter, or and also, or just?
No,
No.
it's summer.
Just summer.
It's the hair.
Is it? It's not summer.
So if you've gotten the emails that I've sent, obviously,
Yes.
so that works, and Roland, that works, okay, so, and everybody else does, so, and then the appointment date there still does not really help us figure out when the term ends, because of things that are midterm. You know,
Emails. Thank you very much for keeping us up to date
Yes.
on everything through the emails. It really is very helpful.
Yes.
Good.
And I feel like we haven't really lost anything because the emails have kept us connected.
Yeah.
well, thank you, yeah.
Good job.
It's a lot, thank you. And it's been, I've had to, and sorry with the two of you that I hit you with this bunch of stuff last night there.
I gotta be honest, I didn't get it, I didn't see it, I was
Oh,
out
that's,
camping. I
that's,
didn't see
that,
it.
oh, that's okay, at least it was there and it's there for the record.
Yeah.
For you, yeah. Because there is an email,
I know,
there's an email all commission members link on the web page for the commission, and that is the way that we try to direct people to that to communicate. Anything, any complaint, anything should go through that, because then we all see it at once, and I don't have to wrangle emails and drop balls, to mix metaphors. So, okay, so that's moving on. Okay, the one book, yeah, education, one book, one community. We had been on track to use and had done a lot of prep for Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy as the one book, one community. Is everybody familiar with that to some extent? Yeah, and I didn't bring a copy with me, but we were on track. We had set up, we were setting up a panel. Ted Todd was going to lead a workshop. We had already placed the book in the libraries, and then we were approached to do the kindness book, and that was a case for kindness. And so we set aside Just Mercy and to postpone it until 2019. And then that was further delayed. And so Bill and I met with Lake Lambert in January. He's president of Hanover College. Met with him in January of 2020 to address complaints from Hanover students regarding a situation in the Madison community that has since been resolved. We discussed a possible future multifaceted joint city/college town and gown project centered around Stevenson's book, including a screening of the film based on the book, a possible appearance by Stevenson, and even a possible field trip to the Legacy Museum and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. That National Memorial, if you haven't visited at least the website,
Going in person is harder.
It's
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah, so
It's
if
so
there's
hard.
an opportunity to go, take it personally, or maybe if we do this, it's just an amazing thing. So, at any rate, we now need to decide whether to return to Just Mercy as our next read, or hold that for a while and turn to a different interim read, such as So You Want to Talk About Race, which was suggested by Kay Williams in an email to the commission. So she sent that. I think this was in the midst of a great deal of racial concern that is still there. And so the question is, which of these would we feel would be best used right now at this point in time? And we can do whatever the commission decides. Are you familiar with So You Want to Talk About Race? Broad, let's see, brought a copy of it. Yeah, it's, if you're not, this is what it looks like. And it's been selling, now with my bookseller's hat on, I can tell you from that perspective, it's been selling quite well. And it's, Ijeoma Oluo is, she's half black, so she's essentially, she's African American, and has mixed race kids. And so, but she talks from the black perspective on how to enter dialogue, and how to be for non-blacks or non-browns, to how to be sensitive and understanding of the impact of words and actions on people that have a lifetime of dealing with this, that non-blacks and browns simply don't have, and are very often just can't even understand, can't begin to understand. And so how do you approach that gap, that void? So there are some sections in it that I kind of felt were a little bit overstated, maybe. I don't know, I'm half brown myself, and grew up as a mixed race kid in a town that at that time was in San Antonio, Texas, which now is a very Mexican town, but at that time was not. And my white mom was treated as a whore because she had a child with this Mexican. So you know, I've experienced a little bit of what she talks about but I think that this is an important read that people would react to differently. You know, so that Brian Stevenson's book, if you haven't read it, it's just an amazing book. It deals with social and economic justice in the penal system in the South.
And it's a true story.
It's a true story. There are points in that you just go, my God, what, you know, that person's mind was just changed around through dialogue, through meeting a prisoner and talking with that prisoner, and just I think it was a prison guard who just shifted. And there's a lot that comes along with that book. The only question in my mind is whether, given everything we were setting up, and then considering the discussion that Bill and I had with Lake Lambert, whether we could, in the time that we have between now and the spring, which is when we usually do these, whether we would have time to set up the film screening, to potentially get Brian Stevenson here, because that's a matter of funding and writing grants and scheduling, and so there are a lot of logistic challenges to that. And because Lake was also talking about building a course that would incorporate this, that would then involve the potential field trip to Montgomery. So there's all that to be concerned with. So it might be just technically, logistically, easier to go with another read and then have that solidly in for the following year. So
May I ask,
any thoughts?
Do you involve Ivy Tech during the one book, as far as placing the book there? And
We haven't.
I would love it if we did.
All right.
And in my role as the diversity lead, I also have a budget. So I could use budget to purchase the books to place in the library, or could host a film screening, or
Great.
so please keep Ivy Tech as part of everything you're doing.
Great. Bill, you got that?
Yeah, and we recorded that they've got money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
It's
got
not a
money.
huge amount of money, but there is a budget.
It's
Yeah.
too
A
late
small
to
budget.
worry.
It's $1.
We do have a reverting line item, by the way, of $1,200. It's reverting, we don't use it, we lose it for that year,
Sure.
but, so we have some, but it's quite limited. And we've used it for a variety of things, but that's really good to know. And perhaps that could be a town and gown kind of thing.
Please.
That we
Yeah.
could work out with Lake. So that which is an additional factor in considering perhaps putting the Brian Stevenson off. In a way, Just Mercy it's timeless. I mean,
Yeah.
social and economic, you know, issues, those are not,
It's not gonna go away.
it's not gonna go away. You know, and if we choose to go with this might be a little more timely in the, you know, in the contemporary, you know, current issues sense, maybe, or if there's any other book that anyone would want to suggest. This I just brought because it was suggested by Kay Williams. And I said, well, I'd take that forward. So any other ideas?
Given the current climate, I would say that we would put Just Mercy on the back burner
Mhm.
and move towards discussing. So you want to talk about race, and we would want to let the local reading groups know as well.
Oh,
They
sure.
were the local reading groups were very helpful in getting discussions going about All We Had Was Each Other, as well as the health.
Mhm.
So,
I agree with
Yeah.
that, because I think what you've said about that, and I haven't read that, is what we need right now. And the big pull for every organization right now, United Way has changed, I don't know how many of them, but the big push is diversity. So they're really focusing on La Casa Amiga because they earn grants because we, in a way, are an organization that really pushes diversity. And so, and just listening to what's going on, the climate, not just here in Madison, but the climate all over. I think we need to change some minds. We need people to really just kind of really concentrate, just forget everything, and really think about this, think about it.
We might need a companion book, so you don't wanna talk about race. Because there's a whole sector of our society.
Exactly.
Would it be a
that's saying,
thin book or a
"What
thick book?"
problem? What problem are you talking about?
It's a hammer. Pretty thick.
Go
There
ahead.
isn't any problem.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
like-
and also, if, like you said, we could do more with Just Mercy later.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
do so much more with it if we put it off, that just makes sense anyway. Why
But we
would
have
we
to
would?
plan now.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
universal book. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Mercy.
Yeah.
I've
Right,
read
I
it
love it, but if we
twice.
can do so much more with that, like, let's do
Let's
more.
spend the
more.
time doing the planning.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly, and do it right.
So we'll have to, within us, decide who's going to do what, in the past, sometimes one person has just taken the whole load on any given educational project. We can't do that. It has to be a subcommittee or the whole group that has to work on that. And that's one of the reasons that we have our line item now, is that I pushed that through because Bob Canada was buying everything out of his pocket, and that was just not right. I mean, it was out of his spirit, his soul. So in that sense, it was right, but it wasn't right for that to be expected or taken for granted. So we have that line item. So, and while I'm talking about that, I have to maintain, avoid conflict of interest. I'm a bookseller, and so the books that we use are, of course, available through our bookstore, but we offer a discount to people that purchase them, and then the books that are placed in the libraries have been paid for by our line item here. And at a discount if it comes from, we supply them in quantity there just so that everybody knows how that's approached. And then I just pull back from promotion of that whatsoever. The books are simply there. That's what we do. So if there's any concerns about that, let me know, because I really try to be very sensitive with regard to that. When a book has so much to say and I get enthusiastic about it, I don't want to sound like I'm doing what we call a hand sell. It's just a book that is worthy of praise. So, anybody want to make a motion to
I'd love to. I'm motioning today. I would love to make a motion to read So You Want to Talk About Race as our One Book, One Community read.
for the spring of 20?
For spring of 2022.
And to do what with Brian?
Oh, and to hold off on reading Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson until a later date when we're able to plan more accordingly.
Okay, there's the motion.
That's a long one.
That's a long one.
But I got it.
Bill, did you get it?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Oh, we had
Lots of seconds.
Shirley and Sue, we had a double forever second.
Yes, forever.
And Just Mercy is on film now.
It is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So
It's a
it-
feature film, and by that time, it may be a little more accessible than obtainable than it was when it first came out. And so then we will go back at Lake Lambert and work with Ivy Tech on that, and we'll start that pretty soon so that we can
We
get that
need
working.
to do a good promotion, so
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
reads it.
Yeah.
We gotta get people out there reading.
The library
Yeah.
has the ability to show films, like we have our,
Uh-huh.
whatever that's called.
Yeah,
And
well, sure.
if the Just Mercy book is, what would that be, spring of 2023?
Hopefully, yeah.
Then the Ohio Theater may be able to.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, you
That
did that
would be-
with, you did that
Uh-huh.
with the movie about
Yes.
the hair loss.
Yeah, the alopecia, we had that over there.
And we
Yeah.
did it with Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Oh.
We did
Oh.
that
Oh,
at
okay.
Uncle Tom's Cabin and The Help.
Mhm.
How would we go about including our teachers for this book? I would think it'd be important that we would include them.
For which book? This book?
So you want to talk about
Yeah.
race? Because
Well, I'd say that I used to have, as a bookseller, I had, because we had events, book events, book drives, so on and so forth, and poetry events. I used to have an email send list of a bunch of teachers here in Kentucky. That is so old, so obsolete now that I don't think that's of any use. So if anybody has the wherewithal to.
We have a relationship with all of them because I have conferences with, with students. And so
That'd be great.
Southwestern Madison shop.
Yeah, well, Southwestern is out of, technically, and we need to keep that in mind, that Southwestern, our purview is Madison. And so we need to just be, not that we can't communicate.
Okay.
with them.
Or invite them to
That's-
participate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or to
Okay.
collaborate.
Pardon me?
Okay.
Or to collaborate.
Or to collaborate,
Okay.
right, sure,
Okay.
yeah, but as far as what we can act on, for instance, with regard to complaints or whatever, it's
Okay.
Madison. Because we're under the mayor's office and mayor of Madison, not the county.
Well, you can suggest, you
We
don't have
can-
to,
we can
you don't have to
suggest,
say
we
you've
can
got to do
communicate,
this,
we
but you
can
can
collaborate, we
suggest
can
to them.
partner, yeah. So,
And I would suggest the chamber as well.
Yes.
Business people,
yeah,
whether we,
All council
whether we do
members,
a
really.
letter or we attend a school board meeting or a chamber meeting, to invite them to participate.
absolutely, yeah.
Anyone in government, in education? I mean, we should promote it. Is that anybody that you have a government
Yeah.
position or in education?
Our police department.
Police department, anybody in enforcement should be encouraged. It's not that big a book.
Yeah.
And,
It's quite readable. It's not like, what is it now? Bound from the Beginning, which is a very, very, very thick book, and dense, and really worth a read. But it would not work as a community read. It would just, people just run into it, go boom. But
When we did, I can't remember the name of the book now, we did readings on WRX.
oh yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Which was that?
I can't remember.
Yeah, we did.
Was it
Yeah.
Eagleston?
No, because I was part of that, but it
Yeah,
wasn't.
but we did just
Yeah.
readings to
Uh-huh.
entice people to
It
participate.
may have been, it may have been The Man Who Planted Trees.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it
Or
was-
no, it was two cups of tea.
2 cups of tea.
About Pakistan.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and then
Pakistan.
that man was controversial
Yeah, that's
afterwards.
right.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Apropos books and reading, and Kay in the same email suggested 2 things. One was that she suggested there should be a member of our commission, this commission, present at all city council meetings. Because every now and then the substance hits the ventilator, and then we hear about it after the fact and go, whoa, what are we gonna, and so I don't know that, see, we're a volunteer group and we're all very busy. I don't know that that's really practical, but establishing some kind of, so I think there's something we can address in the future.
Yeah, one thing has to be stressed, that we don't formulate any policy.
Right, we don't,
Right.
it's just
And
so
you
that
know,
we're
they keep saying,
informed.
well, the HRC can take, well, we don't.
We don't.
We can't.
We don't,
formulate
we
any
can't,
policy.
but so that we know, and I talked with Kay and explained, but having a conduit of some sort might be something for us to consider in the future. Some kind of liaison arrangement or something, so there's improved communication so that we know what they're dealing with, they know where we're coming from. Another thing she recommended that I don't think is applicable, and that is that she suggested that there be required reading for the commission and the city council. That's not gonna fly. But I have a suggestion, and that is that anybody on this commission that has not read this book should.
Yeah.
If anybody
I
on
haven't
this,
read it.
yeah, if you've read it, great. If you haven't, I recommend it highly. I mean, I'm not gonna say we're required to, but I strongly recommend, because we're dealing with this community. And this is the history of this community. It's a collection of oral histories of black residents of Madison, basically oral histories going back to the addressing the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And some of the people in this are still here living in Madison. It gives perspective. Now, I am very mindful of the fact that I am new to Madison. And I'm not gonna come into this place, I mean, I didn't come into this town intending to serve as chair of the Human Relations Commission of a community that I'm new to, So, I ended up here, so I'm not going to be suggesting to somebody whose family has been here for 4 generations, 5 generations, 2 generations, that they should read this book to learn about their community when I'm a newcomer. But for this commission, I really feel very strongly that we should all have read this book. So, and, oh, by the way, this copy of it is the commission's. Okay, it's been donated by the bookstore to the commission. So if you don't have a copy and you want to read it, let me know. I'll give it to you, and I'll be the keeper of the book. So, okay, so we now know what we're doing with the
I have
one.
a
Yes.
point of order.
Yes.
I know you said modified Roger's rules of order. We had a motion and a second, and now a discussion.
We did not vote. Thank you.
And maybe this would be a time for the question.
Okay. Yes. So, we had the motion. We had that was for the read, and we had
And the dates for the 2.
And the
Can you
dates
read it?
for the 2. Yeah. Yes. Please read.
Jessica has moved to use. So you want to talk about race as the next one book, one city, and that would be in spring of 2022, and to then work toward Brian Stevenson's book the following year with collaboration.
And we had a motion and a second. So, and we've discussed plenty. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we can move on. Thank you, Bill, for keeping me on a short leash there. You need to give me a muzzle too while you're at it.
Yes.
So when will this book be available?
Which book?
This one, if I
So you
promote
wanna
to, if I talk to the English teachers in Madison and the English teachers at Shelton, when can
I'll-
we get this?
I'll have to look and see how many copies we put in the libraries.
Okay.
I think it was 8 and 4 or something like
Will
that.
they be there this fall?
That sounds right, Nathan.
Yeah,
That seems,
sounds about
that
right.
seems appropriate. And of course, we can get plenty of copies through Evergreen for
Sure.
anyone that has a library card as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then,
Yep.
I'll have to look into that. So it would be a matter of, I mean, the book could be available in that regard and also in the store and within a few days.
So we could actually start advertising now.
We could, yeah, that it's going to be. We don't have the specific, structure for that,
Mhm.
but the spring read.
Yeah, so they can purchase their books or order their books.
Now, is this book where you could be doing readings on WRX? I haven't read this one, so.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's not that.
I don't either.
No, I don't think
It's
so.
not,
There could
it's
be
not that
one-
kind of a book.
It could be another book, maybe the Madison book, to promote that.
Yeah, what about reading parts of this on WRX? All we had, no, that wouldn't work.
Well, I don't know, go ahead.
Just parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
That this is a book that represents.
We just
these-
recently did a book read with Hamilton College,
Mhm.
with all we had was each other. And, I would actually think that we could do excerpts from Just Mercy
Okay.
to, spike their interest.
Teasers.
Teasers, yes. And then, because some of the things in Just Mercy lend itself to discussion of race
Uh-huh.
and race relations.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
So like maybe using Just Mercy, or is this book as a build-up in a way? Like, let's read this and then we're gonna
So that we
tackle.
can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Many of the things that happen in Just Mercy we could talk about, but there's such hurtful,
Yeah.
volatile types of things. How do you discuss, the treatment of, this person in prison? How do you discuss the separation in the store. But, I don't know, but I think that whichever book we choose to read parts of would lend itself to, so you want to talk about race.
I'm looking to see if there are notes here, but sometimes there are, oh yeah, here we go, discussion questions. I thought I remembered that there was a discussion guide in this book.
Mhm.
So that's something that might be useful.
Yeah.
And of course, there is abundant material for Just Mercy, for discussion of that. So,
Recently, I was at a place, and when I went to check in here in town, the person that was the customer service person said to me, "Do you mind very much if I ask you what you do to your hair?" And I said, "Not at all." And I said something, and she said, "I have a child who's being picked on at school, and she wants her hair head shaved because the kids are making fun of her." How do you talk about that?
there's a chapter about
Yeah,
that.
how do you talk about
See,
that?
that's kind of.
So on the radio, I'm thinking personal incidents, and I'm sure, Tony, you have incidents of questions. I don't know if you could tell it or not. Well, we don't want to get you thrown in jail.
No.
But I think each one of us in our day-to-day walk through town or whatever, where do you go for your haircut? Or what are the businesses in town? That kind of thing that might lend itself to making this book more personal to this community.
Well, maybe what we can do is have a subcommittee established to approach that question, how we could do that. We should move on, because we
Yeah.
have so much to deal
Yeah,
with today.
let's go on.
So much.
We will do that.
But that,
Okay,
we've
yeah.
got direction now.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Equity Initiative. And so this was not exactly ill-fated, but sidetracked initiative. It went to a very broad community level, at the corporate level here, and then pandemic hit, and personnel changed, and it just sort of stopped. So I prepared a little bit just to bring everybody up to date on this. I'm just going to read this, so pardon me for the stilted delivery of this. In response to concerns regarding equity initiatives brought to the Commission by Hanover College, Ivy Tech, and local faith community leaders, 3 large forum-style meetings were hosted and facilitated by the Commission on June 26th, July 11th, and August 7th of 2019. Although the pandemic put a temporary halt to our ability to pursue further the discussed issues, those meetings have resulted in the following. It was decided that we would bring a member of local law enforcement onto the Human Relations Commission. As a result, Susan was invited to join the commission. To provide a more efficient means of communication to the Human Relations Commission, a general email link was placed on the Commission's page on the city's website. This is intended to enable complaints to be conveyed to the full Commission at one common address. A meeting with Mayor Welch was scheduled for September of 2019 to discuss a Madison Diversity and Inclusion Initiative. This was to include an Equity Initiative funding proposal. Planned attendees were Sue Livers, Lindsay Blues, Lake Lambert, Molly Dodge, and Kay Stokes. The meeting was subsequently canceled by the mayor's office, and Mayor Welch passed away later that month. A diversity roundtable with local industry leaders convened by Lindsay Blues and Matt Worth and hosted by the Jefferson County Industrial Development Corporation was held in October of 2019. The session was facilitated by Ashley Easton, Vice President of Programs and Services for the International Center based in Indianapolis. Topics addressed were diversity, equity, and community. Attendees represented Arvin Sango, Vehicle Service Group, Grody, Madison Precision Products, KDH, Ivy Tech, and Hanover College. Lindsay Blues reported that the session was, quote, fantastic, and that a great deal of good information was provided. Backing was established from individuals for initiatives that Lindsay was to present at the Chamber's strategic planning sessions beginning in early February of 2020. The plan was to then assemble the main players with involvement of the HRC to move forward, later opening to other types of businesses, i.e. retail, restaurants, and lodging. This did not come to fruition as Lindsay Blues resigned as executive director of the Chamber and the COVID pandemic struck. A bilingual informational flyer was produced and distributed at Hispanic Cultural Awareness Day in September of 2019, then more broadly, including the Clearinghouse newsletter. Moving forward, post-pandemic, we might consider reconstituting the forum, those 3 large forum-style meetings, with replacements for those who have moved on and trying to regain the momentum lost. And so I've spoken with the new director, executive director for the chamber, so we know who the people were that were representing the industries, and so perhaps we can get that jump started again. So at any rate, that's just a summary of, and the draft, I will read you the draft of the proposal that was intended to be submitted to the mayor before he passed away and everything went down the tubes worldwide. This is a draft Human Relations Commission Equity Initiative Funding Proposal. The Human Relations Commission requests allocation of city funds to go toward engaging a facilitator in developing a strategic plan to address issues of equity, inclusivity, and diversity to the end that Madison grows as a more welcoming and inclusive community and thrives economically. We request $20,000 for a strategic planning process, including engaging of the facilitator and implementation of the produced plan. The driving principle behind this initiative is quality of place. It fits well with the planning that has recently been achieved in the community, i.e. Envision Jefferson County and the comprehensive plan. When the city engaged in the comprehensive land use planning process, it engaged outside expertise. That was seen as essential for the city's long-term well-being, success, and economic development. This is parallel to that and deserving of similar attention, as it is equally important for our long-term vitality and success. The issue of economic development today is human capital. It is essential for the recruitment of talent that we present as a welcoming community. But the retention of talented employees presents an extended challenge. When new arrivals to our community encounter discrimination or exclusion, they are likely to move on to other more inclusive environments. There are subsets of our community that have specifically asked for this initiative: the educational community, the business community, churches and nonprofit organizations, the arts community, inclusivity groups that already exist, and tourism. Hanover College and Ivy Tech have offered to contribute funding towards the endeavor, and other community partners are willing to step up and take part in the effort. Entities within the community that are involved to date include Hanover College, Ivy Tech, Visit Madison, Madison Area Chamber of Commerce, Madison Main Street Program, and members of the Ministerial Association. So that was intended to be presented. It was not, has not been, but could be perhaps as we move forward. So, any questions?
How does this dovetail with the March organizations?
At this point, it doesn't. I mean, that would remain to be seen. So March at that point did not exist. Yeah. So this predates March.
So what kind of action can we take? Can we say we want to?
We can present this. This was that was to be presented to the mayor from the commission.
Right.
Oh, that statement was
right.
from the commission. We
Okay.
crafted that statement.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we had
that's-
worked on that for several months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And had planned on presenting it to Dana Welch.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that were, I mean, all those entities that were mentioned there were represented in these 3 large meetings. And so out of that came what I listed before, the initiative on Hilltop and all the industries. And then this was intended to be working at the city level through the mayor's office. And then presumably, of course, the city council. Perhaps not, the mayor has discretionary funds, so, either or both. So but it's a sort of stopped, so.
But industry is very, very interested.
Yes.
As well as our educational system.
Yeah, and industry has had to keep going through all of this, and so hopefully there's enough retained interest up there that we can get up to speed again.
At least some of the discussion produced got people's attention and produced the Visitor Madison cover of an African American family. On it.
And we need to.
As an example.
Yeah, of course, the current one does not have, we need to keep at that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
players change.
Yeah,
often.
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the thing, somebody leaves and
Mhm.
you don't
Yeah.
have the
You lose your
institutional
memory.
memory.
Mhm.
So, which is why we need our minutes posted, which they're not yet. Okay, moving on, to.
May I
Yes.
ask one more, what would be a next logical step for us? Cause that sounds great, but it's been 2 years, does there need to be any review? I mean, I don't know if we're ready to go present it.
I don't think
mean-
we're ready right now.
Okay, so is there some, something I can make a motion to, like, so we don't just wait till,
I would suggest that we wait till our next meeting, because right now, we're backward looking.
okay,
And we're backward looking and planning on looking and moving forward, like with the books.
mhm,
That is such a complex, I mean, we really need to do that.
okay,
That is so complex that until we can have the players back, I think the next step would be to get the community, the representatives that were part of that forum, or their equivalents, reassembled.
okay,
Because there's been so many change of hands since we had that original meeting, which all of those issues are still there, but they were not there for any of what we discussed
Sure.
prior. So it's just like reconvening and just reaffirming, like what our goals are still,
Mhm.
I think would definitely be important with those players that we met with before.
Mhm.
Because it was a large group of people and
Mhm.
And
definitely.
there are some that are the same.
Yeah, some are
Some
the-
are
like
the same.
Lake Lambert, I mean, he's
Yeah.
still, he's still
Carol,
there.
Carol Dozier was
Yes.
a part of that
Uh-huh.
from the hospital.
Molly.
Yeah, Molly.
Molly, yeah, she's still.
mhm. That
Yeah.
makes total sense, I just wondered like what the actual next, so just so it doesn't fall
The actual,
off, I don't.
Right.
oh, that won't happen.
Oh, okay.
The actual next would be to reach out to all of those, people, and try to, and convene another meeting. That might actually be the next meeting for this commission, it might be the one after that, you know, just contacting them. And I might reach out to some of you to ask you to, reach out to some of them. As I'm finding it, that the bookstore, we're now down to just the two of us. So we are a mom and pop, we've reduced our days and our hours, and we're struggling just to keep it going. And so I am slammed to survive, and so I can't do everything, and,
I believe Lindsay.
Pardon me?
Lindsay reached out, Lindsay Bloom.
Lizzie Blues.
Yeah, she reached out to all the heads of the businesses
Uh-huh,
and
yeah.
invited them.
And actually, I've been in conversation with the new, can't remember her name, the
Is
new.
that Emily?
Emily
Emily
Roberts?
Roberts?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
spoke with her, she actually went back, found notes, has names, and so I can continue that.
Mm-hmm.
Since I started that conversation with her, to get the industry leaders,
Mhm.
sort of, on notice that
Mhm.
we're gonna be coming at this again. And then we'll have to look back at the minutes and see who was part of our forum here.
Try to rebuild that.
And, yeah, try to rebuild that maybe at our next meeting or the one, like I said, the one after. So.
Thanks,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, moving on. Next is ordinance housekeeping. Before, so I don't, I have it later on in my notes to address, but I'm gonna mention it now since it's at the top of my head, that, we have our anti-hate statement. And I just want to, before I get to that later, because I might forget, then say that, in addition to those that have signed on to that anti-hate statement, we have two new additions to that. The Madison Main Street program has now signed on to it, as has Madison Area Arts Alliance. So, that's a great representation of the community now
Mhm.
that we have,
It is.
signing on to that statement.
Mhm.
That is on the web page
The
for.
Ministerial Alliance wants to as well.
Pardon me?
The Ministerial Alliance wants to be on that too.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
thought
get
you already
that-
were.
Get that formalized and, is that official? They're not on there.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think so, but we need to be.
Need to be, but can you get back to them and get back to me?
On the
and-
president, yes.
Yeah?
Somebody's
All right.
having it in my bag.
So tell me know when it can be added.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can get back to you.
Okay, that'd be great. That would be terrific. Okay, so moving on to, ordinance housekeeping. Okay, I'm going to, again, I prepared, because things get so complex, forgive the dryness. In May of this year, I set about preparing for some housekeeping on the non-discrimination section of the housing ordinance, and that's the, we're created as a commission under that section of the housing ordinance. Small details to update, for example, disability, the term disability replacing handicap, gender neutrality, and to correct some inconsistencies in wording among the subsections. This is all just housekeeping. And my intent was to approach some member of the city council to act as a sponsor. So I'd started looking at things and to act as a sponsor if that was deemed necessary. These were such minor things that I thought perhaps it's just the council would say, no, that's fine, doesn't need, but at any rate, I was preparing to approach that. In reviewing the document that I pulled through the city's website, I realized that there was material missing. Under section 93.02, definitions, under familial status, subsection 2, which read, pursuant to 24 CFR Part 5.403 and 24 CFR Part 574.3, the definition of family is revised to include families regardless of the actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, or marital status of its members, end quote. Was no longer present. Also missing were the words, quote, sexual orientation or gender identity, end quote, from section 93.04, subsections A, B, C, and D, as well as from section 93.05, subsection A, and section 93.06. By the way, an aside here, CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulations. So that's federal. I saw that the ordinance had been amended on July 21st, 2020. This was a surprise to me as the commission had not been notified of any pending changes. I viewed the video record of the council proceedings that ended with the approval to repeal and replace the ordinance as part of the city's application for a CDBG, Community Block Development Grant, under the COVID-19 response program of OCRA, Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. The repeal and replace was understood to affect form, not substance, but actually resulted in substantive changes. I obtained a copy of the sample form provided for this purpose by OCRA, in which the omitted definition of family is not only present, but pre-highlighted by OCRA. The words, quote, sexual orientation or gender identity had been added to our city's ordinance in January of 2018 via an amendment sponsored by then Councilman David Alcorn and endorsed by this commission. The definition of family that was omitted in the repeal and replace action is actually required by the Code of Federal Regulations to which it internally refers, specifically including qualification for community development block grant programs under the equal access rule of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the words omitted from sections 93.04 and 93.05 are clearly consistent with that rule. So, our task now is to decide how to proceed as a commission. Questions? Comments? We have an invited guest that's here to represent former Councilman David Alcorn, who has comments. And so if Randy, as the invited guest, could read on behalf of David Alcorn.
Okay, so I'm reading on behalf of David Alcorn, an email that was sent last evening. Hello everyone, I want to first apologize for my absence, but I had to deal with a medical emergency and got caught up in Chicago. 4 years ago, the council led the effort to update our housing ordinance to include the LGBTQ community. We had all 3 readings. I invited guest speakers to talk to council, and we voted 5-2 in favor of the updates. What did you do? The mayor asked it to suspend readings, misled council, and deleted significant parts of an ordinance behind closed doors. Now, all of a sudden, the LGBTQ subgroup is no longer listed on the ordinance. How did that happen? This is what we know to be fact in this situation. 1, the mayor misled council in telling them that the housing ordinance had to be updated. That was a false statement from the mayor. All that was necessary was an existing ordinance which we already had. 2, in public council meeting when trying to apply for federal COVID funds, the mayor was asked what would be changed in the existing ordinance. The mayor's response to council was nothing really, just some formatting. Deleting a whole subgroup from the ordinance is much more than formatting, and not being upfront with the council is just dishonest. This ordinance must be changed back to what it said 4 years ago. I want to thank the Human Relations Commission for the time to speak here today. And
Okay, any comments or questions?
I appreciate that he gave that context. The person who was originally part of, was it 2018 when it was first passed?
It
Or-
was 2018.
Okay. That context helps a lot, and I also appreciated hearing his interpretation of the bit that we can see of the process that happened most recently. I totally agree as an individual with his sentiment that that needs to go back to what it was, to the 2018 version. So my question is, what do we do? What is our role? How do we do our part to make that happen? I know none of us are on that council, so we can't bring it ourselves, but I would like to know how we can do that. That's a question I have.
Actually, let's see if I can. We have, I'm looking for for the ordinance here. Okay. Under our, and this is a different part of, this is the sections 93.20 through 93.24 that were not impacted by the repeal and replace. Councilman Thevenel made a point to say that section, that part of the housing ordinance not be impacted because that created us. But under that, let's see, it shall be under our duties and powers. We can recommend investigate. Okay. Actually, it's under annual report and recommendations. The Commission on Human Relations shall submit an annual report to the mayor and the Common Council with its recommendations for legislation to aid in carrying out the purposes of this chapter. So we can recommend, per the ordinance, we can make a recommendation. We can make a recommendation that the wording that fell out be replaced.
I do want to say that I so appreciate Alcorn's background and bringing his voice to the table. But I don't know that we know for sure the mayor intentionally misled.
No. And that's actually, boy, I don't know if these things are picking us up at all. And that it was in mindfulness of that, that I worded my statement here very carefully, that the repeal and replace was understood to affect form.
Right. I think we don't know
Who understood it?
if that was really what the mayor understood. They did not read it. They waived procedure and did not actually read it out loud. It is lengthy, and so it made sense that they didn't want to sit through that lengthy reading. But it was clear that none of them knew what was in the new change.
Well,
So it looks bad.
well, also they had a sponsor who read through it and said the same thing. It's just form, and
Yeah.
I mean, if he read through it like he should have, he would have seen that the only change that I can see is that language. And if you're applying for a grant, I don't know, to take out more inclusive language to get a grant is just very confusing to me.
And it's not necessary.
Right, and it didn't seem necessary, so it does seem, I'm trying to word this as best as I can. It does just seem strange, all in general, why this was even brought up at all.
It looks suspicious.
Yes,
The way it's handled.
yes, and I don't even wanna say that, because that's pointing fingers I don't wanna point. It would never, I'm just saying, it just
It
seems.
needs to be clarified.
Yes, there is a lot of clarification that I feel personally I need for that.
The optics are certainly back.
Yes.
And I will say, one more thing about that. Even though one of the council persons said they read it, they missed some big errors, even in the boilerplate, like
Oh, of course.
filling in your town name, and it just was a parenthesis that said any town, Indiana. They didn't even bother to put in Madison, Indiana.
Yeah.
So it was a real cursory read if they did anything. And so I don't know who knows what, because the way it transpired. I don't want to make an adversary out of our council and mayor, but it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be reinstated as it was in 18.
I understand that the mayor actually said, in the meeting, I'm trying to recall, he said that SERPC requires us to use their form. I think those, do you have the transcript there?
I
I
think
don't
I
see
do.
that.
Is it here?
It should be in there, but I didn't find it. I remember reading it somewhere.
Actually, it was Councilman Jenner who said, "They're minuscule changes, and I really couldn't find a whole lot of differences. I'd be happy, we can talk to SIRPC, yeah, that one, and figure out why they like this one better. But oftentimes, they're just minute things that come about after periods of time, especially when you're dealing with fair housing."
So is City Councilor Jenner that said that.
Councilman Jenner, who's not a city councilor, he's the
attorney.
the
He's
attorney
The
for the
attorney,
city.
yeah,
yes.
City Councilor Jenner, yeah. So he said SERPC preferred that form. Now, that form, I found that form, as I stated, that form is not a SERPC form, that form is an Okra form. It's from the state. SERPC is the Southeast Indiana Regional Planning Commission. It's a community and economic development agency. They're not really an authority, they're a channel. And they're a conduit for Okra in implementing things that regard development. And so the form was from Okra. I know that because I looked at the little things that didn't get edited properly that Bill was mentioning and found that's the form, because those little bits of errata are the boilerplate things that are in the Okra form. So that was the form, but that form did include, and Okra had highlighted, the definition of family.
And what was it? Was it consistent with our 18 statement?
It was. And the thing is that the commission did not propose that. That already existed because that had been in some way transmitted to the city from the state, from Okra, previous to our 2018 amendment to add sexual orientation and gender identity. That definition of family is not something that the commission proposed.
We didn't generate it.
We did not generate that. That's federal, that came through the state. So we didn't generate that. We generated,
Yeah, me
say
too.
what?
I was hoping we could take credit for it.
No. Our legalese ain't that good.
That's
You
true.
thought we were pretty smart.
I was giving you all an A+.
We didn't, we just, those few words, sexual orientation and gender identity, those are all we were able to put together. And so that came from us. The rest was from Oprah, from HUD, basically. And I have found the documentation for the Code of Federal Regulations that refers to that. And as I said, it's required for community development block grants, which we were applying for, which means that if the ordinance, as it was amended with the repeal and replace, did not include that, it was in violation of HUD's policy, which means that the community got, which means that my bookstore got blood money. You know, so there were a lot of balls dropped somewhere. Whoever was reviewing things, if that's what went forward through SERPC and to Oprah, and that wasn't caught, then somebody up there missed it, right? So it's just, there's this mess of omissions and oversights that we need to at least fix at our end of things, I feel, to put things back the way they were at the local level, and so that it's consistent with federal and state guidelines. I mean, those don't include, they do not include sexual orientation and gender identity in those various, subpopulations. That we added. But there is nothing in state or federal regulations that in any way implies that they have the authority or would eliminate any such protections at a local level. I mean, that's sort of the equivalent of states' rights here. You know, to say that your city cannot protect these people is not something that the state's going to do any more than the states would put up with being told that they have to do this or that from the feds, because, you know, we had that argument all the time. So that this was not questioned is something that I kind of wonder, why was this not questioned if that is what was preferred by SERPC? And who the hell is SERPC to say that these populations in our community are not to be protected?
And something that concerns me is that it was not given to this board for review.
We weren't
That it
notified.
did,
Right.
and here we are responsible for something that we didn't know happened.
And did not know until I went in to do some house cleaning, and that's almost, well, as of yesterday, a full year.
And this is why I think another reason to follow up on Kay Stokes' recommendation that somebody attend the meetings. Because we
It was
could
Kay
have
Williams.
followed,
Kay
I'm sorry,
Williams.
Kay Williams, because we could have perhaps caught it at the first reading.
Uh-huh.
Could have.
Yeah. So you've got, you know, you don't know what Mayor Courtney actually read or understood, because he was going under the assumption that SERPC required this. You don't know what Jenner understood, really. We do know that there was a sponsor, and that among the three of them, this was not caught. I mean, we know that, or at least apparently was not caught. And we also know that the council as a whole did not go home and compare the two documents. Why would they pour through 8 pages to, you know, I mean, I did, but I only did after I went, what? And then I poured through and found every little inconsistency between the two documents. Now, that's a lot of work. So there were a lot of people that didn't do their, I guess, their official due diligence there, but it's just a massive mess.
So we have an opportunity to make a proposal that this be re-engaged.
Yeah, that's part of our charge,
Yeah,
to make
Definitely
recommendations.
need to do that.
Oh, we absolutely do.
And what's the process?
The process is that well, I'm going to be presenting the draft, and did I skip an item on our agenda? Or
Yeah.
have we not gotten to it? I
No.
did?
Yeah.
Well, you slapped my hand.
No, you were on a
No,
roll.
I didn't think, no, we're on
We haven't
ordinance
gotten to it?
housekeeping.
Okay.
We're still on our ongoing business.
Okay, we're still
Yeah,
ongoing.
and just the
Okay,
last
that's
item
down-
of our
Okay,
ongoing.
it's
Yeah.
down below.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, no.
Good,
What
good.
we decide here will go into.
Well, what my thinking is that, see, I'm going to present our report, and we're supposed to report annually to the mayor and the council. As far as I know, that's never been done ever. Right, oh. See, I hadn't done my due diligence, I hadn't read that until, well, actually, it was when I was, yeah, well, about a year and a half ago, I read that, went, oh, good. And so, in my memory, I know it hasn't been done.
You did without
And
Huntington.
if any of the, did you? Yeah?
I think so, without
Yeah,
Huntington.
with Huntington, of course, Al was a member of the commission,
He
was he
was,
not?
he was just involved in everything,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, so since Al Huntington, that hasn't been
That's
done.
what I
then-
think so, since
2004.
that.
Yeah, because I could find no record of it in all the various notes that Bob gave me. So I figured, okay, I have records back from 2016 on. And so I decided I would, from 2017 on, that I would make a report to the mayor and summarizing our actions from then to now. And so, and present that, and after presenting that, I can then ask, I can make the recommendation per our defining ordinance that, so, and I can use the verbiage that I used before, missing with the, from section this, that, and the other. I can be very specific about that, in that, so I could do that. So thoughts?
One other, I like your idea to specify, you know, specifically, we believe this should go back in. And I think an overarching maybe statement, a reminder, you know, in reviewing some of the, you sent some links to some of the council meetings, and on a positive note, I've heard Mayor Courtney say a couple of times, nobody should ever be discriminated against. This is an inclusive community, and I think what a great way to solidify that by going back and fixing this.
Yes.
Good point.
So I think that could be a way to tie it
Absolutely.
together,
Together.
Well, I wonder
and
if you
it
really
totally,
saw it.
you know,
Yeah, see, I don't think we read it.
supports it. I mean, I feel like that theme, how could somebody not listen to our recommendations? So
Bill,
that would be.
did you get that, what
I
she
did, yeah.
suggested? And see, I don't want to forget that, because I think that's a really good, yeah. I mean, diplomacy is what we're all about, right?
Yes.
Diplomacy are us.
It's the only way to handle it.
So,
Mediation.
And that's what we
Yeah.
want to accomplish,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
let's fix it
Yeah.
in the spirit that's been stated.
Yeah. Okay, so, anybody want to make a motion?
Here you go.
Let's see how so I make a motion that we, add to the annual report, or,
No, that,
how do we do it? Make a motion that we recommend to the,
it can be independent of the report itself.
to the mayor and the city council to add back the verbiage that was removed from the fair housing ordinance.
Specifically regarding
Specific-
gender identity
yes.
and sexual orientation.
And specifically going through 93.01 to, I believe it's 93.10.
Second,
Okay, we've got a second. Wow, what? And all in favor, say aye.
aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, so that's,
Thanks for noticing that, Chairperson.
Yes.
And now we can move on.
didn't notice it until May.
But we
Uh,
noticed, you noticed it, and we're taking action.
Okay, so, let's see, and speaking of moving on, I can, that,
New business.
okay,
New business time.
so, new business time, we have a complaint from a citizen. And it's the first complaint we've had since before the pandemic began. I want to first quickly say, please, you got the email, you know who it is in the email, let's please keep the complainant's name out of our public discussion, right? Keeping it confidential. And so that was an email of July 19th. We have the name and the phone number for that person. And so in a nutshell, if you've read the email, this person felt that they were targeted unfairly. they came in and spoke with Scott Gross, building inspector, and John Schuring, the nuisance officer. And so, my understanding is that then this person's, I don't know if they live in a building with other units or in a neighborhood where there are neighboring houses, but there were neighbors that were also cited as a nuisance. I don't know, I don't have any more specifics than that, if it was noise or weeds or weed or what, you just, but a nuisance. And so I asked if they specifically said that they felt they were targeted on the basis of race, because this is an African-American person. I'm going to keep gender neutral here also for the sake of privacy and confidentiality. So what we need to do is that someone needs to reach out to that person. Someone needs to reach out to the building inspector and the nuisance officer so we get all angles on the issue. Find out just what was stated, why, what was a nuisance, what's their perspective on this, and what is the complainant's perspective on it, so that we can then proceed accordingly. And if we can, because that is our charge, is to investigate. That's our first charge, to investigate and then to mediate, and hopefully to mitigate and resolve, perhaps, if there are misunderstandings. And if not, then our next step after that would be to make recommendations for action, be it legal or otherwise. So, does anyone here know that person?
There is the name. Do you have the? I know. I do not know that person.
I think I'm gonna be I'll go, but I need someone else with me.
Yeah.
And I said too, I don't know if I said anything, but I see yours.
Yeah.
Okay, no. I can talk to the building, the nuisance officer and the building, or the building inspector. I know the nuisance officer.
You do?
Fine, yeah.
Okay, so you can talk with John Schuring. Okay, now, Bill, you could speak with the complainant.
But I don't want to do it by myself.
With someone with you.
I'm happy to go.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that with you.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
thank you.
Okay. And then, so that leaves Scott Gross, the building inspector. Does anyone want to talk with him? Or if nobody's jumping on it, then I can do that.
Let me see. The building inspector did not actually do the complaint.
No, that's someone, the
received the
complainant came
John-
in.
John
and
wrote the complaint.
And spoke with him. John wrote not the complaint, John wrote the citation,
Yes.
right, or whatever, the citation, John Schuring did. He's the nuisance officer. The complainant came in and, as I understand it, spoke with Scott Gross, the building inspector, who is the first person you encounter when you come into the building. Poor guy. So, and whether they spoke to him because he happened to be just inside the door, or because that was the understanding that it had something to do with the building, I don't know.
I can talk to the building inspector or John. Do we need to do both?
I think we should, to find out what was said.
Okay.
Because, that, what Tammy had was secondhand. And so I think that talking with those two people with the building inspector, because the complainant spoke to him directly. And I think that Tammy described that. Let me see if I can find the email from Tammy.
How about I talk to the building inspector then? That makes more sense for both.
It was on Monday.
there we go. She said, okay, the complainant came in to talk to the mayor. Tammy did not speak to the complainant. Complainant talked to the building inspector. Okay, the building inspector was copied on the email. And the nuisance officer was copied, but not spoken with at that time. So that's why the building inspector should be spoken with, because the complainant spoke with him. That's what Tammy said. So, so do you want to speak with the
I go with the building.
bill, so, but
Scott.
do you know the nuisance officer? John
You
Sherry?
do both of them?
If you want to do both, sure.
Sure, I'll do both of them.
Yeah, I don't know him, and I,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Yeah, I got you.
No problem.
yeah, I've never met John Schuring, and Scott Gross I've spoken with on the phone, but never met face to face. So, okay, so if you two could do that and then get back to me,
When do you want us to get back to you by?
you wanna give it a week?
Well, I'll reach out to her right away,
Uh-huh.
because it's already been a few days, so,
And I can,
maybe we can set up our schedules to do
Yep.
that.
so that we can hear the, because we'll wanna reconvene to discuss our findings before
Yeah.
we bring them together.
Yeah, and we can do that as a subcommittee. That does not
Yeah.
need to be a full meeting, and a public meeting. These sort of things, can be done as a
I
subcommittee.
can make an appointment with the two between tomorrow and Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll see
We'll
what
work
we
it
can.
out.
So then the four of us could then communicate one way or another, or meet, perhaps mid next week.
And we can CC
Yeah,
that meeting to the committee.
yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Good, well, that's the, first complaint we've had for, quite a while. Formal complaint, yeah. Okay, let's see, where are we? Okay, the report, the draft, for the report to the mayor and the common council. We've already talked about it, but if you had a chance to look at it, any suggestions, any, for changes to that? It's a lot, I don't know if it's 8 pages, we might not want to do a full reading of it. I think it's just 4.
People in trouble.
So,
It looked thorough and well organized,
Yeah.
thank you for capturing the elements.
was it well-reasoned and insightful?
It seemed like
I don't know about the last part.
I don't think we're gonna give you a Pulitzer Prize.
Thanks, Forever Sue. Okay, so
Well done.
that's what we'll go forward then, thank you. All right, can I have a motion that it be presented as such to the mayor and council? So who wants to do a motion?
I will make a motion that we present the report to the mayor and the city council.
And we have a second from Shirley, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That sounded pretty uniform, all right. Okay, moving on.
Who was the second on that?
Shirley.
That's what I wrote down.
The Indiana Consortium 47th Annual Training Conference. Indiana Consortium of State and Local Human Rights Agencies. This is something that we might want to consider joining. It's entities such as ours throughout the state. I don't know how many there are. They have a new website and they've not updated everything. I can't even see what the dues are at this point. They're having a training conference, an annual conference in Michigan City in September. It's expensive. They're staying, as conferences are, you know, in a conference center, and the rooms are something like $150 a night. And then there's a fee for the conference itself, but I'm just throwing that out. If anybody is rolling in the dough and wants to go learn all about what the rest of the state is doing with regard to human rights and relations in their communities, I'm sure it would be very, I don't know, I've been to a lot of conferences, and you get about this much information with about this much partying and socializing and this much expense. So I don't know that I would recommend it, but I want to throw it out. Tammy tossed this out to me and I thought, well, okay. But as far as perhaps joining this, that might be a good idea, because I've already kind of tried to network with some other human rights and human relations chairs and directors, and this might facilitate that. And so, but I don't know what the dues are. But I imagine it would be covered by our line item if we choose to use part of it for that. And so, as we move forward, perhaps I can update the group on that. Okay, what are we doing for time? Okay, we've got, I was hoping to keep this under 2 hours, and we're okay so far. Let's see, where are we? Okay, public awareness is next. Okay, this is a source of some frustration for me. Our minutes have not been readily available on the city's website. They are not there at all. There are no minutes. No agendas except for today's agenda. Lo and behold, today's agenda appeared. But the agendas for our previous meetings, now I have sent our agendas and our minutes back as far as I have them. I've sent them in to Hannah Fagan. She's the executive assistant for community relations, and she manages the city website. I sent them to her on December 11th, 2020. Those were minutes and agendas from my time as chair. January 22nd, 21, I sent additional earlier agendas and minutes. And she said that they would go on live when the new website went live in March. In March, Bill and I met with the mayor and Hannah on an issue, and she was there, and we touched on this.
They were redoing the website.
They were, yeah, but that was, it was supposed to be going live right about then. In April, I made a phone call to request that Roland be added to the member list. His name wasn't even on there. After more than 2 months, he'd been a member. In May, all of the above organized files I sent in, named consistently with documents that I saw on the city website, formatted to PDF, organized into files for upload, easy upload. I've done web management. I was a webmaster for the Faculty Senate, the university where I taught. So, you know, I know what helps. I sent all of this pre-formatted with a request to add Roland's and Season's email addresses. And in June, I put in another phone call to request that their email addresses be added because they were not getting the emails that went to. So, at any rate, that's one of the reasons that people don't know what we do. What we have done, what we are doing, is that our minutes aren't out there. So, I'm thinking that the formal report that I submit to the mayor and the council, I might submit that. It's a summary of what we have done since 2017 on. That I might submit that to the paper so that it can be made public what we are doing, what we have done. Because as far as the community knows, we're sitting here with our thumbs up our butts and not addressing the issues that are important to the community. And that's just, they need to know. And so, any thoughts?
What you said is exactly what I was gonna say when you started. When you mentioned the report, I thought, why don't we just put that in the paper?
Yeah.
Or even if we could get in the roundabout as well, because I know a lot of citizens do read the roundabout, and it's a whole month-long publication. Therefore, more opportunities to pick that up.
To get it.
Good point.
Roundabouts.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody picks it up.
Yeah.
It's free.
It's
And
free,
to dovetail
it's
it with
everywhere.
advertising the book.
Yeah.
too,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
Here's-
Bill, get
That's
that.
the lead, yeah.
That could be the lead, and
So,
then, so you
courier,
know what else
roundabout.
folks have been up to. Those are great ideas.
Okay, all right. I'm also, some thoughts on improving the commission's page on the city's website. Perhaps drawing from the flyer that you all have seen. Have you all seen the flyer? And this is bilingual.
Oh, this is the,
Oh.
It's on English on one side, it basically, and we need to add the new
send it because
entities
I'm
to that.
I passed those out at this.
So, okay, and I've talked with Hannah Fagan about a downloadable or fillable human relations complaint form that can be either downloaded or filled in on the website, and through that mechanism, communication tool, it comes in and be channeled to us that way. And once the complaint form, and I submitted sort of a suggested structure for that. Once the complaint form is established through the page, through our page, adding a report an incident of discrimination to the how do I menu item on the main page. Over at the right in the main menu, there's a how do I, and you can link down from that. And adding that to that, so how do I report an incident of discrimination that links to the complaint, that provides the complaint form. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'd like to consider adding a suggested reading list to our page on, so which would be this book certainly. And this, any of our community reads, add that, and then we could, I could take suggestions for adding titles to that from anybody from within the commission or from outside the commission that we can just, discuss as a body here. So suggested reading list. Adding, I would like to see the joint statement added to the city's main page. Now, that's the anti-hate statement. The challenge with that, potential problem with that is if we put this anti-hate statement on the main page of the city, it looks like maybe we have a problem. Well, we may have a problem, but do we want to broadcast to the world that we have such a problem that we need to put an anti-hate statement on the main page of the city? So, I mean, that's sort of how do we, so I was thinking, well, perhaps having in the FAQs, what do I do if I experience discrimination, but in the About Madison part, moving here, having in quote, to quote perhaps, Madison is a welcoming community. And welcoming means something. That term means something to challenged populations that are discriminated against. It means something to the LGBTQ plus community. Certainly, the word welcoming means you're safe. Yeah. So if that verbiage, Madison is a welcoming community, in some place in the description of the city, with welcoming hyperlinked to our page, where the anti-hate statement is prominent at the top, something like that.
Makes sense.
I actually don't think there's anything wrong with that, having that on the main page.
On the main
People
page.
make mission and vision statements all the time after we believe we are this. And people might take, there might be a fear, but I feel like that goes to that book. Like if put it in the back, we're not sure,
You drive
Here's
through
who we are.
Paoli and you see the signs all through Paoli and Mitchell
Yeah.
saying anti-hate.
I personally would love to see it there.
Could be a
Yeah.
point of pride. I mean, that could be, if we want, that could be a recommendation we give.
Yeah.
We could say, we think that that's the will of this group.
And that,
As a suggestion.
and I as an individual would be delighted to put that forward, as the will of this group. When I throw that out there, I throw that because I try to see various sides of any issue and what somebody might express as a concern, and I could see that as being a possible concern. So, but the commission can move and vote on that, on what to suggest.
I think the louder and more you say something, the louder and more it's heard. So the more places that statement is, like it's been adopted by several groups, like you said, and if we go to those websites and we can see that, I feel like that tells the community that we actually believe it and we actually want to uphold it and abide by it, instead of, as Katie said, like, it's over here a little bit. Like, we still like this, but it's just,
We just do it a little bit.
right, and
Which makes it not happen.
which makes it not at all. A little bit's not
So
enough.
if you speak
So
out, that's when it becomes
Yeah.
an anti-hate.
if we can go
Otherwise-
to all these city websites or multiple city websites and see anti-hate, 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 that to me as a as a person, if I was moving here, I would be like, wow, they really believe that this is something that they want to uphold.
Otherwise, there's undercurrents that there is hate.
Right.
Yeah.
There is discrimination.
Well, we have a lot of mass now behind that statement.
Yes.
A lot, and we add the ministerial association to that. I mean, that's a huge, major portion of the community right there represented. So, you know, collectively, you know, with all of those organizations, the Chamber, Madison Main Street Program, the arts, faith community. So, and then with all of that, why should it not be on the city's website right up front?
I think I
So-
have it because
Well,
I mean,
I'm not sure it doesn't need to be.
I got it
both
from the
places.
churches.
Pardon me?
I hate
It needs to be in
hearing
both
it.
places.
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
just
on our-
one or the other.
On our page and on the
I do like
homepage.
the idea of the About Madison too, though,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I do too, the roundup, that's
and link it then to our page.
Yeah. As opposed to, oh, in addition to.
In addition.
Yeah, uh-huh. The Madison's a welcoming community and linking to our page. Uh-huh.
When the library redid their website, we tried to make a lot of links to the same page, like so many different ways to get to the same information because so many people look at information differently. So the more ways that we have access to get to the HRC, I think that right there is helping with our public awareness.
Mhm.
Because right now, you know, you have to go here and then here and then here, you know, but if it's like, I can get there 5 different ways, I'm more likely to end up getting there.
Yeah, people have a hard time finding us.
Yes.
I
yes.
have a hard time finding
Well,
us.
yeah. Trust me, I deal with computer
Even if
issues
they
all
know
day
about
at my job.
Yeah.
I know that people don't have the best computer skills in this community, so that's why for us that was really important was like make it so
Yeah.
obvious. Hey,
come on.
I mean it respectfully. It's job security for me.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah.
Well, and Nathan, in the reverse is to have the organizations that have represented themselves on the statement, to have that statement, at
I-
least a link to it.
I've been talking with the chamber about that, and so, because that was the intent. Ivy Tech can't, Molly said that they could go on the Facebook page,
Right.
but not on, because it's a state organization.
That's right. But
And I
Main Street, yes.
understood, but the
Our lines,
others,
yes.
other organizations, it would be great if it's right up there.
Yeah.
And so, all right, we need a motion.
Can I make a motion?
Whoa!
Take it
Let me-
over.
Let me ask, could I frame it as, put it in the report, 'cause I'm thinking, what's the communication mechanism, you know, to the mayor and the city council? So would it be to make a motion to, our recommendation to have this on the main page of the city and HRC and everywhere else, and that you would insert it into our report, Nathan, so
No,
that?
not into a report.
Okay,
This
so-
would be a request that I think probably most appropriately made on behalf of the commission
Okay,
directly to the mayor's office and to Hannah Fagan, who manages the website, and
Okay.
she works directly with the mayor.
Okay.
There, I don't think that the city council has oversight of the website and its content.
okay, so then
And
I
so-
make that motion as you just described.
Did you get that, Bill?
You guys are making this very difficult.
Sorry.
I'm just writing my own pages, just vote.
Yeah, good,
You're
good.
gonna
Make a
have to
motion
remake
to
your motion.
communicate directly the wish of this body to the webmaster, basically.
Right. Mhm.
To have this on the main page for the city,
Yeah, she's,
links to,
she's executive assistant for community relations.
okay.
I will second that motion.
Okay.
If that's a good motion too.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, any discussion? Nope, all right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, and I will do that, so that'll be, those are my marching orders here. And, oh, by the way, the statement, I did submit that to the clearinghouse, for the clearinghouse newsletter, and they said they would have that in there in perpetuity, which has not happened. And so, I've gotta try again, because I want it in there bilingually, in the clearinghouse newsletter. So, okay. Boy, we're still going okay.
We're getting there. We
We're
got it.
getting there. Okay, we have, concerns from the community.
Oh,
Wait, you skipped the
Bias
explicit
training.
bias training.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is something that I want to shift the order. Because the implicit bias is something that Sue could address and perhaps Susan could address. But because Sue was on a committee that the mayor convened, and that might take some discussion. And maybe we could push that to another meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so, because I know that there've been there's been some activity there on that, in that regard. Actually, the mayor alluded to that in the recent council meeting, I think. So, some various things, retire the rebel concern, not our purview. We can't go near that. That's not us. Can't do it. We are Madison only. Black-owned businesses, promoting black-owned businesses, again, that is not our purview. There's no discrimination there. The promotion of black-owned businesses is best dealt with through the Chamber and Madison Main Street program, and I would want to say that to promote businesses without their express interest in being promoted might be overstepping. You know, I would say that if there's concern that black-owned businesses need, which there has been a concern expressed, black-owned businesses be promoted, that they be checked with before there's any promotion of them, just out of respect. And equity study. That there have been several requests regarding, suggestions regarding an equity study, and I want to get to that in a minute, so I'm going to put that aside. I'm just sort of going through these and sort of commenting in terms of our charge and our responsibility, and if at any point I exceed what you think my limits should be, then tell me to be quiet and correct me. Yeah, I'm doing this to be as expeditious as possible. Let's see, workshops and discussions have been suggested. We have those, and we have had workshops and discussions and roundtables and forums, and that's something that we have done, and certainly will do. And the education side of it with books, that falls under that. And again, a lot of these things that have come forward, it's because people don't know what we do, and they don't know how to find us on the city website. And it's very difficult to find minutes anyway. You have to really sort of navigate through to find minutes and agendas. It's a little cumbersome, put it that way. But we do a lot of this stuff. Request for a fresh statement regarding the KKK. We discussed that to death when we generated the anti-hate statement. And at that time, the position of the commission and the mayor's office, that was under Mayor Welch, that targeting a specific group, how many groups can you target when they come through? How do you know who they are? And it can accelerate a problem, and it can draw attention to those groups in a way that just ignoring them but making a more global statement, you can accomplish that end. So that a couple of yahoos show up in masks and say they're KKK, and how welcome they feel in our community to a few people that are around the fountain on an important day in Madison is most unfortunate. It's not good for our image, but just how, which group is it? So, and when what, 3 years ago, three times back when the KKK came in, there was a big response to that, and I was down there, a lot of people were down there, a big statement was made. It was just huge numbers out in opposition to that. A statement was made then. Since then, they've come back several times and people just kind of yeah. So I'm sort of describing the situation. you know, and what went into our decisions at that time, and those of you who were part of that decision making, you know, you're here, so add anything or correct, but, you know, do we need to change the hate statement, or does it say what we need to say with the weight of all of those associations or entities added to it? Do we keep it as it is? Roland thinks we should keep it as it is.
As it is, yes.
I like it as it is. I like that more people are adopting it. I think that is important. And I do think KKK is a very difficult issue, because while I think we can all agree we don't like them being here or like what they have to say, it's very hard to they're not going away, and they're gonna come here, whether it's on the dates they've been coming or they're gonna pick new ones. It's hard to tell them they can't come here in a way, because then you have to tell other people they can't. How do you, and then it just gets into a lot of stuff.
Well, the city deals with permits for assembly, this and that and the other, but,
Right.
have you heard of Skokie, Illinois? No, yeah. Yeah, the Nazi Party, American Nazi Party, was going to march through Skokie, which is a very Jewish suburb of Chicago. It's in Illinois, north of Chicago. And they were going to march, and the community was up in arms and said, no, you can't. And it went to the ACLU, and the ACLU, which is generally viewed as a rabidly liberal organization by the rabidly conservative part of society, defended the Nazi Party and won.
Right to assemble.
Right.
Okay, right to assemble. As it turned out, the Nazis did not march in Skokie. They decided to march, and I think it was downtown Chicago. But that put Skokie on the map in a way that Skokie really didn't need.
Right.
We're probably wrong.
Yeah. So, you know, the best laid plans can just blow up in your face. The best intentions can, you know, so the what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, you know, the long view is important to maintain, the strategic as opposed to the tactical. So, I don't know. So, do we keep the statement as is? Is everybody okay with that? It doesn't require a vote. It's just, you know, as is. Yeah. Okay. And then, okay, equity audit. Jill Kelly-Corn is in the room. and Jill proposed this equity audit to City Council. It's very interesting series of exchanges over a couple of meetings. The beloved Jill, I think we've all, has everybody watched the videos of that?
Yes, the
Pretty
last
much.
one I watched.
Yeah, okay, so we've heard what you said to the council. I have a question. The beloved community audit, where did you find that?
I did some research. I talked to a former citizen of Madison, and that was one of her recommendations.
Do you want a mic? You've got a mask or you want, no. Okay, you spoke to a former citizen.
Yeah,
yeah.
and that
Some-
was one of the recommendations. It was one of the instruments that had both a free and a paid option, so I thought that would be a good choice.
I went, let's see if I still have it up.
It's also,
No, I don't have it up right now, but yeah, I saw that there's a free, the self audit
Yeah.
there. And I don't see, I don't personally feel that there's really any problem with doing an audit. That, you know, you learn something about yourself.
I think so too.
You know, I don't have any problem with the idea.
Well, I think that's essentially partially what was being asked of us a couple of years ago. I mean, part of it. I mean, we were kind of looking at, I think more equity for, like, more than just racial equity, more, encompassing more, but I feel like especially the industries that were approaching us, they were saying, we can't hire diverse people, they don't want to live here.
And
So.
once they're hired, they don't wanna stay there.
Right, and if they're, once they're hired, they're not sticking around. So I essentially thought that's kind of where we were headed a couple of years ago. And
Now, Jill, was that beloved community there, it seemed targeted at, I guess, corporation, education. Was your intent, what did you have in mind for it to be, the city administration, city hall, or the city at large?
Well, I guess one reason I chose that instrument is I felt like it was fairly general, and so it could apply. I mean, you know, I've asked Ivy Tech to do it. We've talked to some other organizations that are.
So as opposed to looking at the whole community in one audit, having different elements of the community do an audit.
Yeah, because I think the way I understand it, and I could be wrong, but the way I understand it is it will work best for a specific organization where you can collect data
Right.
about that organization.
That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
I kind of, I was not quite sure I could see it fitting city administration. It's not exactly an a corporation, but I didn't, I couldn't go into the audit. I was just looking at how it described itself. And I'm thinking, since there is a network of human rights and human relations organizations, and I've been in conversation with a couple of the directors, and in some, say in Columbus, Ida Ramirez up there, they are independent of the mayor's office, but they're within the city administration. They're a free agent within the city administration, and they have paid staff. Wow, and autonomy. But so I've been talking with her, and she has feelers everywhere. So I might do a little bit of talking, reaching out, and see what other communities have been using, because I'm sure they have.
Yeah.
Especially in the last year or two, I'm sure they have. And see what tools they're using.
Yeah, I mean, if you find an instrument that you think is a better fit and that maybe would be a better community-wide, assessment, by all means, go for it. We were just, as also a volunteer organization trying to look for something that seemed like it could work.
So then,
That's
we
free.
could look at community-wide, or we could look at something that could be used just for,
For
say,
different-
the city government.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
so-
right.
So why, if it's, good, I wanted to have that exchange there. So, commission, any ideas, any comments? If I were to reach out to some other cities, see what they've done, and then, this isn't an action item, it's just something that I do, then we would proceed a little bit later. It's not something, we're not at the point of recommending anything to the city yet until we do a little bit of research and see what we could recommend.
I'd be interested in seeing how we evaluate, just as a
Even on this
commission.
one,
Yeah.
Even on this one.
Just to see where we are, how we stand, how we can improve. And it's free.
It's nice, it's a nice way to model.
I think
Yeah.
It is. Our beliefs,
perhaps,
that's a
that
great idea.
would be a good self-evaluation tool for us.
Well, why don't I reach out and see what other tools are out there that might be used. We have this one, Beloved Community, I think it's called.
Do you have a copy of it?
I can send you the link.
Yeah, there's a link.
It's in the email
I'm
that
looking at
Jill sent
wearebeloved.org.
to the,
Yeah.
yeah.
We are
Jill's-
beloved.
All right.
Jill sent
Yeah,
that
and
to
you
the.
could go through, even if you just wanted to do it as a mock,
Yeah.
just so you would know what it's like. I'm not sure, like I said, if you don't have data, you could still do it, but many of your answers might be, we don't have data, because that's one of the options.
Which would tell us something about
Which
us.
would tell it, yeah,
Yeah.
so that might be a good idea, so
Yeah.
just to see.
I did take a look at it too, and I did think it did seem more, not as small as community-wide, like you were saying, it looked more like educational or business, like to look at it an entity kind of,
Yeah.
institutionally. It did look like that, but so then I looked and I did kind of peruse other cities to see what they did. And Columbus in 2020, Columbus, Indiana, Bartholomew County, their United Way released a report just in 2020. I don't know what tools they used, but it's on equity and inclusion, and they included a lot of different types of disparities, who are feeling those disparities, in education, in health, and then they even included what are people saying. I know they did forums and asked people, they did smaller group forums and asked people, what are you seeing?
Would you send that to me?
I would happily, yes.
Do you drink a lot of coffee?
Yeah. Just a little bit. When I walk into Red Roaster, they just start writing on the cup now, so they know exactly who I am. But and then I was looking. I also looked at other bigger cities, but I didn't want to look too hard at those because I know that the tools and the resources that they have and what they're looking at is going to differ vastly from, what we are in a smaller town. But I know that Columbus and Bartholomew County has really stepped it up because of come-ins and because wanting to retain their diverse talent. They've really made an effort to look at it and then continue upon what they've been doing, so that's why I tried to look at them a little more specifically.
I tell you, the tail of industry can really wag the dog.
Yeah. Yeah, and, they were saying
A lot of
in
areas.
2045, it's gonna be
Indianapolis.
white minorities, so we need to look at them.
Marion
Yeah.
County.
Okay. Yeah, if you could send that to me, then, and I'll talk to Ada up there as well about that. So, this isn't really an immediate action item then, but I think our intent is to
Work toward it.
Pardon me?
We're working toward it.
Working
Yes.
toward it, yeah.
I want to
And
say,
then-
I love the analogy that Jill gave.
Yeah. that
Oh,
was-
About the
that was
fence and
Oh.
the 3 boxes.
Yes.
Because showing the difference between equality, you're looking at the same baseball game, but the view you have of it, and it depends how well you can see. And I thought that was perfect. They
Did you
should
get
have
what
she said,
understood that.
let's
They
take the
should have
fence,
understood.
take away the fence.
I've
Take away the
been
fence.
after taking away the fence
Yeah.
forever.
Did you hear the sidewalk one too? I like the sidewalk because I felt that it was relevant to what's
Yeah.
going on. Like
Yeah.
right now, like our sidewalks, yeah, I mean,
They're deplorable.
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
awful.
very well done.
Like I cannot
Yeah.
imagine like being someone with some kind of physical disability and walking our sidewalks. I
Exactly.
would be terrified every step of the way. But there's a sidewalk and I can walk on it.
Well, and even like as a mom who once was pushing strollers, like that was
Totally.
a problem for me. It's like I had to,
Gotta throw those kids up for a
We live
second.
downtown, people use the alley because it's been recently repaved.
Right, and that's
More
nice.
than they use the sidewalks,
Because
because you will fall.
And the street.
Nathan, I wanted to say one more thing about that is that I think they talk about in the description of that tool that it's not even meant to be used for like accountability purposes. It's merely informational. So it's like if you wanted to go a step further and say, hey, we're committing to these, improving in these metrics, then you would want to use a different tool, that was more statistically-
Informational self-study.
Yeah, so it's merely just to say like, hey, how are we doing on these things? So it's kind of like a quiz,
Yeah.
It's a snapshot.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's see, so, it's 4:05, I really want to, so we're putting up the, training for local law enforcement for Stu and for later. There's an ethnic harassment ordinance, which is very interesting, that this even exists, that we can discuss later. It's kind of strange, that's just a teaser, next meeting. But, so, that puts us then to open discussion, anything that we've been pretty open in our discussion at this point, but anything else that anybody would like to toss out there? And Councilman Chatham?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. I just have a couple questions. So the information you were reading on the fair housing that you were talking about, can I have a copy of that?
This, what I read?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And then is the statement that Mr. Lakeman read part of your minutes now from Mr. Alcorn?
That, yes, we can,
I do the minutes, I don't know yet.
we
Nathan,
can.
I'm gonna
I
hope so, yeah.
have your highlighted copy printed, and then I have the copy that they did, and I'm happy to give
Yeah,
both.
oh, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one, this is what changed, this is what they took out, and then this is what it is now. I have both copies, I can give them to him.
Right, and then what I said, the statement that I
Oh,
read
is-
as well. So sure, if you
Yeah.
want to give those to him, and then I will email you.
Sure.
What
Just
I,
mail it to you, so.
what I read, is that?
Yeah, that'd be
okay?
great.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's it's basically just a description, face value, without any interpretation, well, you heard our discussion.
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure out what happened. Yeah, okay. Anything else? Yes, Jane?
Yeah, I have just a few
Hang on,
things that I
get it.
noted during the meeting, that I hope can be helpful or quick questions. With the Indiana Force Consortium for State and Local Human Rights Agencies, just as a tip, maybe check and see if they have like a cost relief program with
Have
that.
a what?
Cost.
A cost relief program with that conference, because sometimes conferences will have some way to reduce costs for participants.
Oh, yeah, they have scholarships.
Okay.
It says they have scholarships.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. I
On
just
their
wanted to put
website.
that out there.
Yeah.
Also, in regards to concerns from the community, I think it's really important to have maybe more conversations with the mayor, because I think a lot of those concerns were directed to you from asking the mayor about those certain topics. So I don't know if, as administrations change, perhaps there could be some kind of policy in place for updates to new elected officials about what this group does, and then how to address those topics that can't be addressed in this room on a broader scale, maybe like a county-wide HRC, something like that would be in order.
That's not something that could come out of the city.
Do you remember when we used to have Matt Forrester, he would be the
Andrew.
representative,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
Yes,
then-
Andrew, as a
Andrew
representative.
for that-
We do need a representative
Yeah,
of the mayor.
you know, we
Yeah.
did have, always at our meetings, the community relations officer under the mayor. That was Andrew Forrester, who was always at our meetings. He was always there. So that is no longer, I asked actually at one point if Hannah Fagan would be coming in, and she said, no, she has other responsibilities, I was told. And so I don't know if there's a new, she was the new Andrew.
Okay.
When he left, she came into that office. I think that office has been, well, it's been moved, and I think it may have been redefined in some way, but that has been the case. There has been a direct line to the mayor's office
What about
in
the
the
deputy
past.
mayor?
And
The deputy mayor?
there was not a deputy mayor
No,
back
there
then,
wasn't.
but,
Now they got
but-
the deputy
yeah.
mayor, somebody
And so
else.
that is something that would, that we could certainly attend to. At that, you know, a direct line to the mayor and a liaison. See, we're under the mayor's office. You know, I can go in and talk to the mayor anytime. And so, in a way, that would be redundant. But I'm also a really busy guy. If somebody's there that's seeing the mayor all the time, I mean, that's a good point. It would be a whole lot more efficient. And then having a line to the city council as well. So those are things that we should attend to.
Also, is there a way for, at another meeting, for a plan to be put in place if the pandemic resurges so that this group can meet even
Can't
if, you know,
say.
in
It's
person?
nice, see, that was a real source of frustration. You know, things were coming at me, at me constantly. And we weren't able to meet, and it was not the city's fault, because things kept changing. And the technology was there, but then the technology was expensive. And so at one point, we got the boards and commissions, some were kept active on Zoom, and others were told, unless there is a pressing issue, we were told, unless there was a complaint, that there was really no way for us to meet. You know, and for a large period of time there, we weren't comfortable meeting. And to get 9 people together, this is the first time in many years that the entire commission has sat at the table at once. This is the full commission here. This is a friggin' miracle.
Should we take a picture?
So it's,
Better get it. That's why we got it.
Could there be a contingency plan for like, if, you know, if.
Are you saying, Nathan, that maybe that's more of the, that was more of the city's decision?
no,
was
and
it?
part of it was my decision.
Or just
You know, I did not want to meet anyway.
Right.
I wasn't coming out of.
And it had to be
But like on
recorded.
Zoom or
I
something.
was doing
And that was-
Zoom with everything.
That was the
Yeah,
other.
That was it, that was the huge thing, that our meetings are public meetings. So they have to be, one, they have to be recorded, and two, they have to be open to the public. I mean, that's why you're here now, that's why you can be here now, because it's open to the public. There was no way we could do that and also have the structure we needed to discuss things and have, and without things just totally degrading, you know, doing Facebook Live. There was not a structure that lent itself to the way we need to work and keeping it public in accordance with what we're required to do.
When
So
things
the
came
record's
up
there.
from time to
Curtis,
time.
oh, sorry, Curtis.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
When things came up from time to time, the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary would meet and discuss that. But that was not a formal meeting because we have to have the meetings open to the public. But we did not just disband.
No,
We
no,
stayed
we
in
didn't, and we
contact
can.
so that-
We can have subcommittees, and so we did maintain some communication.
Yeah.
There, that's why there were 3 members of the commission that attended one of March's Zoom meetings. Because we were just, okay, how do we, what do we do? And so, it's difficult to navigate. And so we don't know what a resurgence of the pandemic is gonna do to society. Well, how we're going, it was through all of that, everything was being redefined on a daily basis. Our business was redefining itself day to day. Like, what do? We get up in the morning and go, okay, what sign do we put on the door today? What do we put on the website? Are we gonna, so there's no way, I don't think that we can really have any contingency plan there. Sorry, Curtis, yeah, you.
No, I just want to speak to that because I feel like when you weren't able to meet, my perception was maybe some of the things going on weren't as important because you didn't find a way to meet. Whereas I serve on 4 different boards, including the council, and we continued to meet remotely. All of our meetings were open to the public. They were recorded and showed later or even showed live. So the city has those tools as a extension of the city. All of that platform is available for you guys to utilize. Maybe it wasn't shared or told or trained. I understand that. And there was an executive order from Governor Holcomb that kind of certain boards weren't allowed to meet, but then it was changed that realistically anybody could have met. It came down to who was going to enforce whether you met or didn't meet. So I would encourage you. I agree with the intent.
Well,
I mean,
first-
putting a plan in place if this happens again, or if you guys can't assemble in person,
I will say,
something electronically is
We were told
definitely
the
needed.
city canceled their Zoom account when we wanted to.
That's not true because the council was meeting on Zoom.
Well, this was after that.
So, and I mean, we've met, the Jefferson County
Actually,
Board of Tourism
it is true.
meets
This
on,
is what we got from the mayor's
on,
office.
well, again, I'm not gonna speak to the mayor, I just would encourage you that,
Yeah, maybe the council was being told and doing one thing, and we were being told another, but.
I know there were
yeah.
certain boards that didn't meet the entire time, sure.
Yeah.
But then, as those depending on the level of importance of those boards, they were able to meet.
What we were told is that we did not have a complaint. A complaint from the community, as the one that we were addressing, that we're addressing now, and we did not have a complaint of a complaint of targeted discrimination.
But I think your mission of what you guys are doing is important to not just the mayor's office and the council. Obviously, it's important to you guys because you're serving on that. But if
Absolutely
you don't
agree.
meet for over a year,
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
it
The
sounds like
importance
there
is
was
lost.
some miscommunications, and I feel like that is true of a lot of pandemic things that happened. It was changing, and maybe some wires got crossed. But if Zoom is available to us, I feel like that would be a great tool to utilize if something does happen. But it seems that maybe we were misinformed, and we could definitely revisit and have a contingency plan.
Yeah.
It was
We
so
tried.
challenging to get public involved in Zoom.
Yeah, it's
Because
definitely
then it could get
challenging.
bombed.
The platform isn't the greatest, but at least
No.
you can continue to meet
Right.
and serve your mission that you're trying to, you know, enhance
No, for the
what we're
public
doing in the
it's terrible,
community.
but-
Well,
So,
well-
council meetings were difficult because we had to open it up to the public for people to come in that waiting room to ask questions or, I mean, it wasn't the best, but, you know, we learned and we adapted through it.
But see, that's the thing, the public aspect of it, you know, how to,
So when you post your meeting notice that you're having it, there was a Zoom link listed within that public notice
Yeah.
that anybody in the public can meet with. So I'll take the responsibility and I'll work with the mayor's office to make sure that that platform is available for
well,
you
that'd
guys
be
moving
appreciated.
forward. And I'll
Because we
report
did
that back
try-
to you.
We did try several times to figure out how we could meet. And it just, and it was, I did not get the feeling that it was, we were being denied something. My feeling was that it was actually an issue, a problem, that, you know, that it was not that anything we could complain about. But it was just about, so I made.
Were your meetings monthly or the court, what, how?
We don't have regular meetings. We meet,
Well, I would suggest that'd be the first thing you could do is if you could get a regular schedule, then.
that, yeah.
And now that you have a full board, like you said, all 9 were here, maybe that's
Yeah.
another step in the right direction.
You should have been looking over my shoulder when I was trying to put together this.
I can understand.
It was a 2-page spreadsheet. So, and it's, and I don't get paid enough, but, wait a minute, do I get paid?
Let's see.
Yes, Jane.
Just a couple more things, and thank you for asking. I wasn't trying to pass judgment or anything. I really appreciate the work that you all do individually and collaboratively. I was gonna mention the book, so you wanna talk about race, is available through Hoopla in audiobook version. So.
It's also available through other
Yeah.
other audio.
So it may be good in the advertising to note that it is accessible at no cost for like the visually impaired or for those who are challenged with literacy. So that's just
Yeah.
another more accessible way to access that book.
Yep.
And then was there anything else? Oh, the radio. Yeah. Could y'all go into a little more detail as to why that particular book could not be read on WORX? Like, what specifically makes it?
It's not the content; it's the structure.
Okay.
It's
I
It's
volunteer
form,
to
not
read it.
substance.
I feel like it would be great. It's
Pardon
very,
me?
I feel like it's conversational. I think it would be great.
It's the, I
I'll
think
do it
it's
for you.
just looking at it, I think it's more the length of, it is conversational, it's quite accessible, it's very readable. It's
This
the,
paragraph is.
what do you think, Drew?
I think right here it is.
Yeah.
Is it really about race? I mean, I just feel like we have gotten further if we'd focus more on class than race. I'm sitting across from a friend in a coffee shop near my house.
You're
He's
hired.
a good friend. I mean, you know, that part seems like it could
Well,
be read.
what she does is, she'll start a chapter.
Like that?
With anecdotally,
Uh-huh.
you know, very conversational. Curtis, thank you.
No, thank you.
And-
Appreciate
and-
it.
And thank you for that input, and I'm
I'll
gonna.
be in touch with you, Nathan.
Okay, great,
I'll be
and
in touch.
I'll send you the,
Yeah,
the text
document.
of what I read.
Thank you.
So, you're hired.
No.
And Jill said she'd read.
No, that's what she does. She starts a chapter very conversationally, anecdotally. I was doing this, and then develops that and into a whole chapter. And so the point that she's making, is, you know, as far as perspectives and how people react, this, that, and the other, and the history, and becomes more dense, broader. And so I don't know. Why don't
No,
you-
I mean, I
let's-
just looked at, I hadn't even seen
It
it. But
is
you know, not,
quite
it wouldn't
accessible.
be like excerpts, it wouldn't be like read a whole bunch of it, but just.
Well, finding, I think, yeah, finding a section that would be readable and complete enough in itself.
Yeah, to give
You
you,
know.
oh,
Uh-huh.
If I may as
Yes,
well,
go ahead.
I have a couple of things. One is, do be sure to use Ivy Tech as a resource, whether it's for space, whether it's, you know, you talked about education and workshops in the community part of this. I have tons of materials and tons of access statewide to workshops and people and things that we could use in our community. So please be sure that you are always tapping this. And then also, you know, from my view of, you know, being the president of
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
2 boards, you know, if something comes up, like for instance, promoting black-owned businesses, bring that to the Main Street program. Talk to us. You know, we will be able to. I take a lot of things to our boards, and that's how we got the Art Alliance and the Main Street program on the statement. You know, so just know that the community is there, and that we're all doing this. You know, in our organizations, we're constantly thinking about it. We're constantly, you know, Main Street. I just had a meeting this morning about how do we get a more diverse board. You know, it's very difficult, and one of our solutions is we're just going to do an open board call. You know, and you can come and interview for the board, and because in the past it's been, hey, you want to be on the board? You know, so yeah, there are a lot of resources in this
Little
community.
echo chambers effect there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining us today on pretty short notice.
Yeah, last night I was like 1894.
Thanks for being so willing to share.
Sure.
Yes, and
My
thank
pleasure.
David.
Yeah, excellent.
David
Okay.
texted, said he was pleased, so
Oh.
I think he was pleased with the outcome.
Okay, so.
I have
Yep.
just a quick question. Email quarantine summary.
Yeah, I
You
don't
don't get
know.
these.
I do,
Yes.
and it never says anything.
Right. Never says anything.
I've opened them 20 times, 20 zeros.
Even
all
if
across
we
the
get
board.
an email, it
What
says
is
0,
that?
I
and I'm
don't-
like, why does it say 0? Didn't we just get an email?
Yeah.
Shouldn't there be a 1 somewhere in there?
Yeah, it's weird.
I guess none of them have been put into the quarantine category, is that what that means? Like there's some type of filter situation and we're getting the report that none were quarantined?
I just hit delete, I don't even.
Yeah,
I-
me
I don't-
too. Yeah, I'm done with it now.
I think we're all
After the
getting
first
that.
5 times there was nothing, I was like, I'm done with you.
Randy, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you so
I
much.
think you
Bye-bye,
wanna
thanks,
miss
Mandy.
something.
We'll see you
No, I
Wednesday.
don't think it's ever said anything.
Is that telling, is that saying
You're hanging
you're
on.
irrelevant,
Yeah.
you're irrelevant,
Yeah.
you're irrelevant?
Nothing.
Because that's how I think.
Oh, don't take it so personally.
Do you mind if I take another flyer?
Oh,
I'm not
yeah,
good at it,
everybody that wants to
Casa
take,
Amiga.
some flyers.
Actually, I might take 2, one in
Take
both
whatever
languages,
you
so I can
need
put it on
to-
both in Casa Amiga.
Take whatever you need to, distribute to those who need to see them.
That's fine, that way, because I didn't remember.
Yeah, I gotta
pass
play
them
it
out.
out.
Our
Yeah, I think
festival is
we're-
the 18th.
I think this is, I got it,
September.
on my.
September
I think this is
18th,
open
September
discussion
18th, so
gone
I had a
wild.
great time.
Today.
Hello, calling to order.
Sue, Bill.
Where's your
Bill,
gavel?
we need to, I need a gavel.
Okay.
I need a gavel.
I gotta go.
I need a gavel. We need to adjourn formally.
I already put it in the minutes.
Who made the motion?
We're adjourned hereby at 4:24.
Okay.